I've had many people ask me, what is the best way to study? How do you save the most time while still getting good grades at school? Now, the usual answer I tell these people is there is no best way to study because learning is a combination of many things and so on. But if I really had to pick one thing that has helped me the most and produced the most results in school, it would be the ability to remember everything I hear in a classroom. The reason I say this is because when my exams come up, I don't have to relearn the whole thing all over again. Using the methods I'm about to share with you, I can already remember 90% of what I hear inside a classroom. So the best way to study I've picked here isn't something you do at home. It is something you do inside your classroom. Now, there are a few things I do to have this ability. So let's take a look at the first and arguably the biggest thing. Non-linear note-taking, something I do to reduce my notes from 20 pages into just one page while still remembering everything. Now, I've talked about nonlinear note-taking quite a lot in my previous videos, but this time I've included a live demonstration of me watching a lecture and taking notes. You can check out the link in the description. But before you watch that, please stick with me for a while I explain what nonlinear note-taking is so you can better understand what I'm doing in the live demo. Let me start off by saying traditional note-taking is pretty much useless. When you're just sitting there in a classroom, listening and writing down whatever you hear, it is a very passive thing to do. You're not using your brain at all. Sure, it can be active if you truly listen, process the information, and write down everything in your own words. But when you have a blank line waiting in front of you, it becomes very easy to just write passively. Traditional note-taking makes it easy to not think. The only useful thing about traditional notes is you get to capture what you hear in a classroom and review it before exams. But let's be real, when your notes look like this and there's 20 pages, you see what I mean? So how do you fix this? How do you make notes actually useful? Let me show you nonlinear note-taking. This is when your notes are more like a messy, big diagram. There are lines connecting different topics together, you have information floating around, and it looks more like a big picture of the thing you're trying to learn. But wait, isn't this just a mind map? No, there's a reason I don't call it a mind map. When we say mind map, people think of a big central idea in the middle, and then you have roots splitting out into many different topics, and there's lines all over connecting different ideas. This may sound similar to what I just said, but the objective is very different. When we make mind maps, sometimes we focus more on the action of drawing. We purposely draw random lines and arrows, even if it doesn't make much sense, just so that the whole thing looks more like a mind map. However, in nonlinear note-taking, your main objective is not writing the notes. It is simply to listen. The main thing you're doing is truly listening to your teacher and trying to understand what they're conveying to you. And then meanwhile, you note down your ideas and understanding and pretend that your notebook has no lines. So you will spend the majority of your time thinking, and you will treat your notebook as an extension of your brain. The thing is, before you even write anything down, you have to think very hard about where it fits into this diagram in front of you, where it fits into the bigger picture. So it helps you identify which information is relevant and how it connects with other topics. It helps you see whether your teacher is just yapping or not as well. Because of just summarizing everything you hear in a blank line, you actually see the big picture in front of you. I'd also like to share a technique I use while I take nonlinear notes. Having photographic memory is something we all dreamed of. Unfortunately, there is no proof of its existence. The closest thing we have to photographic memory are these methods that geniuses use to remember large amounts of information. However, if you actually look into these methods, you will find that it's kind of impractical to do in a classroom. It takes a lot of time and it requires extra material, so it wouldn't be very suitable to do while you're listening to your teacher. But if you look closely into each of these methods, you will find that there's one thing in common. There is always a step where you associate a piece of information with something personal. And it turns out I've been doing something similar to this without even realizing. In my 7th grade English class, we had to memorize 20 new English words every single week. At the start, I struggled with memorizing everything and it made me deeply hate English class. But then I tried something new. I tried making up a funny story to associate with each word. For example, one of my words were ameliorate. This is how I remembered what ameliorate means. When you say ameliorate, it kind of sounds like Milo, a Milo rate. In my country, there's a chocolate drink called Milo. Whenever I had a bad day, I would come home, drink some Milo, and I would feel better. So therefore, ameliorate means to make a bad situation better. So now whenever I see this word, I would immediately think of Milo then I would remember its definition. If you want to see another example, go look at my live demo in the description. This is something I included while taking notes as well. So my point is, when you're inside a classroom, if something irrelevant comes to your mind, whether it's a joke or a picture or something personal, write it down. That personal connection will make you remember the information for a very long time. So there's a simple and short exercise I do on top of nonlinear note-taking that helps me remember information for months. So the idea behind this is to immerse yourself in what you learn. If you take a look at the spaced repetition graph, it shows you that the first time you learn something is usually not enough to make you remember. However, if you keep reminding yourself, especially for the first few days, then you will remember it for a very long time. So there's a very simple way I like to immerse myself. Step 1, look at an everyday life object. Step 2, relate it to something you've recently studied. That's it. It takes only a minute. For example, my shirt is pretty smooth. That means the coefficient of friction of my shirt must be very low. Speaking of coefficient of friction, here's how you calculate it. The coefficient of friction is also used in these types of questions. So I can keep reminding myself about the coefficient of friction and link an everyday object to physics. Or another way you can do this is to just think of a random vocab you have learned recently. Try to think of a hard one. Once you've recalled the meaning, explain to yourself how this concept fits into the bigger picture. So by immersing yourself constantly in random times of the day, you are fully leveraging the spaced repetition effect. And believe it or not, even if it's just a minute, it counts as a study session, because in study sessions, you're basically trying to remember what you studied in class and you're achieving the exact same thing here. So why limit yourself to just one big study session when you can have multiple of these tiny study sessions throughout your day and fully leverage active recall and spaced repetition? Another way you can immerse yourself is content consumption. The type of content you consume shapes who you are. If you go to YouTube, there's going to be a little section on top that tells you a few of your favorite genres or things you like to watch. Just by looking at this, I can already tell you what type of person you are. I can tell your personality. And for each type of student, this list of genres is going to be different. So if you want to become better, what do you watch? Aim to watch edutainment videos. These are videos where it's mostly fun, but also a bit educational. Everyone has a different taste, so I can't tell you exactly what to watch, but here's my personal list of the channels I like to watch. It's important to know that when I watch these types of videos, I don't get bored. If you don't feel the same way, that means this list is not for you. Because as I said, everyone has different tastes. These videos make me think, make me curious, and sometimes I even subconsciously link what I'm hearing to the things I study in the classroom. And it's a very good feeling when you're able to do that. Studying is a marathon, not a race. So consistency means everything. If you do these things just for a few days, you will not see any results. For things like nonlinear note-taking, it is a requirement that you actually attend all your classes, truly listen, and try to understand. If you have a bad sleep schedule, if you're unhealthy and have a bad attention span, then it's going to be very tough to do this consistently. Don't waste your time chasing butterflies. Mend your garden and the butterflies will come. If you start focusing on building healthy habits like exercising, having a good sleep schedule, then attending early classes and having pure focus won't be a challenge for you. So my bonus tip for this video is, as unrelated as it might sound, a healthy life will help you get healthy grades.